Hey everyone, and welcome to another SkillCapped guide. In this video, we're going to be talking about a highly debated topic in Valorant, which is crouch spraying versus standing spraying. We're going to differentiate the two sprays and determine the big question that's on everyone's minds. Should I be crouching when spraying? Is there a time and place for crouching? Or should I straight up just avoid crouching in general? My name is Dr. Zora, and without further ado, let's get into the video and answer this question. First up, let's review what the two sprays look like. With standing sprays, when you see an enemy, you want to let go of all movement keys and focus on shooting down enemies. With crouch spraying, what some players will do and what many players end up developing a habit for is when an enemy is in sight, you stop any movement and immediately press crouch prior to spraying your weapon. With that out of the way, let's talk about the pros of crouch spraying. The primary reason that players crouch before spraying is that it increases the accuracy of your bullets. If we turn on firing error in our crosshair settings and crouch down, you can see that the crosshair gets narrower when doing so, indicating more accurate bullets. This can be a big advantage, particularly at long ranges where enemies are more difficult to hit. At least that would be what you'd think at the beginning, but we're going to get to that in just a moment. Along with that, when crouching you decrease the vertical height of your player model, thus making yourself a smaller and therefore harder target for enemies to hit. Now while those are the two primary advantages of crouch spraying, there are disadvantages to it as well. First, when crouch spraying, the location of your crosshair is going to change, which can affect your aim. So if you had your crosshair placed at head level on an enemy and then crouch, your crosshair ends up lower and you can end up hitting the body rather than the head. This results in you taking longer to eliminate your enemy and potentially causing you to lose a fight or take significant damage. Second, the biggest disadvantage of crouch spraying is that it significantly limits your mobility. If you decide to crouch during a fight, you're going to be fully committed, as the time it takes for you to uncrouch and then move is long enough that the fight is probably going to be over before you can even get out of your original position. You're essentially stuck in one place, and if you whiff your initial spray, you are going to have to continue firing where you are while the enemy is still able to move around. With that being said, we're going to answer the big question in just a moment, but let's first discuss the pros and cons of standing spray as well. When standing to spray, the biggest advantage is that you're able to be mobile. For example, when taking long range engagements, the best way to take out an enemy is through short bursts, as the longer you spray, the more RNG you have to deal with. After the initial spray, you have the option of strafing around to make yourself a harder target before shooting another burst of bullets. This is most clearly seen particularly when you're hiding behind an object on the map. When trying to engage an enemy, you can perform a quick peek, perform a burst spray, and then back up for cover. This is only possible if you remain standing. Performing the same peek but crouching would increase the time it takes for you to get back up and get into cover, which is why in this situation it's very advantageous to remain standing. Now that the pros have been said, the biggest negative about standing spray is that it makes you an easier target for enemies to hit. Compared to crouching, standing means that your player model will have more vertical height, and therefore the enemies have less room for error during their spray. If their crosshair is in line horizontally, they're likely going to hit their shots onto you, whether it's to the head, body, or legs. Particularly at the higher levels where players have very good crosshair placement at head level, standing can make yourself an easier target to deal with. With the pros and cons of each technique out of the way, that leaves us with the big question: should I crouch when spraying? And the answer to that is it depends. There is a time and place for crouching, but the big mistake that most players have a tendency of doing is that they'll crouch way too much. They crouch during every engagement regardless of the situation, and this is where we find most players crouching at bad times and thus causing them to lose fights that should have been easily won. When reviewing gameplay from the top pros such as Scream from Team Liquid and Sub Rosa from Team Solo Mid, we found that most players were pretty split between crouch spraying and standing spraying when they go for their kills, with the end result being that players lean ever so slightly towards spraying while standing. This appears to make things confusing on whether or not players should be crouching while spraying. However, we did find common trends between the pros that determine whether they would crouch spray versus standing spray, and they align with the pros and cons that we mentioned earlier between the two techniques. So when should you crouch? We have 3 situations where we highly recommend that crouch spraying will give you an edge in the fight. First up, we recommend crouching in the close to medium ranges. The reason for this is that crouching will make you a smaller target for enemies while also increasing your own accuracy. Since the enemy models are going to be bigger at these ranges, you wouldn't be able to strafe shoot. The fights are going to end much quicker, and therefore once you see the enemy, you're going to be committed to the aim duel. In this case, movement isn't a consideration or possibility, and crouching will help improve your accuracy while also giving more trouble for enemies to eliminate you with this sudden change of position. Next, If you aren't able to eliminate an enemy after the first 6 or so bullets, we recommend crouching afterwards. After this initial burst of bullets, you're going to start experiencing recoil that you need to control if you want to land further shots. And crouching during this situation can actually help you to do so. Because the initial recoil is mostly vertical, crouching will lower your crosshair and help you control it. You can see Scream from Team Liquid performing this technique where he'll shoot an initial few bullets and then crouch to help assist with recoil control. Not only that, but crouching after an initial spray will change your player model's position, and if players were initially trying to aim at head level, crouching during the middle of the enemy's spray will allow you to actually dodge these bullets. So when crouching in this scenario, you're essentially killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Lastly, when facing an enemy and the enemy crouches during the engagement, we recommend crouching in this situation as well. Not only will this force the enemy to have to adjust their aim, but it will also help you adjust your aim as well onto the enemy. If you're aiming at headshot level and the enemy suddenly crouches on you, all you have to do is crouch back to realign your crosshair and quickly get you back on track on eliminating your enemy. To wrap up this section, we want to give a rule of thumb, particularly for players that may be at the lower ranks such as gold or below. If you fall within these ranks, we recommend that you do not crouch at all. The reason being is that at these lower ranks, players tend to be aiming more at body level, and by crouching against these opponents, you're actually going to be helping them place their crosshair at your head, causing you to get killed easier and quicker. By keeping yourself standing during all engagements, you're more likely to tank body shots, and with good crosshair placement from yourself, you'll be able to easily out-aim them with a headshot in these situations. This is different in higher ranks where players tend to have their crosshairs placed at head level, in which crouching would be more useful to dodge their bullets. So make sure to consider your enemy's skill level, and if you notice that they have a tendency to hit only body shots, make sure that you avoid crouching against them. Now that we have the situations where it's best to crouch and spray, we need to go over when it's best to stand and spray. We have 2 scenarios where we highly recommend standing and spraying. First is during long range engagements. As we mentioned earlier, since these engagements tend to be longer and it can be difficult to take out the enemy with the first initial spray, it's better to remain standing so that you're able to strafe in between your shots if need be to make yourself a more difficult target for your enemy to hit. Second, standing sprays are highly recommended when performing shoulder peeks next to cover. This is for a similar reason where remaining standing will allow you to quickly peek an angle and strafe back out within moments. This allows you to get a few shots before hiding under cover and determining your next move to either peek again or change your position. This is particularly important when you're holding an angle and know that multiple players are coming your way. You want to remain standing in this scenario so that you can fire at the first enemy you come in contact with and then be able to jiggle back into safety so that the enemy teammates are not able to quickly trade you out. The one situation that is an outlier is when you're in extremely close range with a player, where it would actually be to your benefit to stand and run and gun against the enemy. And when we say extremely close range, we mean that the enemy is essentially face to face with you, in which even if you run and gun, there's a very high chance you're going to hit them while keeping yourself mobile and therefore a harder target to hit. Again, this is an outlier and a very rare case scenario. When playing the run and gun, you have to ensure that the enemy is close enough that you'll be able to safely land your shots. Alright, so do you tend to crouch spray or standing spray? Let us know in the comment section below. And while you're down there, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get more premium guides just like this one with one goal in mind, helping you become a better player. We here at SkillCapped want to thank you for watching. We'll catch you in the next. I'm Dr. Zora, and good luck out there.